Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this evening's live stream. I always say there's lots to talk about, don't I? Well, there's particularly a lot to talk about, especially today with decriminalisation of abortion taking place in England. England and Wales, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But lots of other things as well to talk about while we're getting warmed up. Where shall we start? Let's have a look at our slides here. Now, I wasn't here last week, was I, on the live stream? I haven't watched it yet. I know Phil and Dave and Gareth, I think, did it between them. I've heard some good feedback of that. I know they enjoyed doing it. So I'll watch that soon. So, yeah, thanks to them for doing that. No one's joining me tonight apart from your good selves. So do fire the comments in. Good evening, Mary. So what have I been doing? Well, I think weekend before last, I was over in Dundee with the Franciscan Friars again. I went and stayed for a night, stayed for about 24 hours. I appeared on their podcast. If you look at our social media, X or Facebook, you can see links to that. That was a really interesting chat I had there with the friar. And last weekend, I was down in London speaking at the CBR conference, Academy, rather, Clarkson Academy. CBR, Council for Bioethical Reform. They're a pro-life group. They've operated in Scotland for the last few years now. They do displays in public areas, showing images of unborn children, and invite people, if they want to look at abortion images as well. They're the group who went outside the National Prayer Breakfast last year and brought abortion to the attention of the delegates at that. So that's the sort of thing they do. So I'd say they're, how would I describe them? A very bold and creative pro-life organization. So it's great to be down there in London doing my talk, and I've been on a panel as well, also meeting lots of other people as well. So that was a very, very good time. What else have we got? Just a little thing that's been going on in Scotland. I've mentioned this occasionally, but it goes on and on. So Sheku Bayoh, this is the story of the black gentleman who was heavily under the influence of alcohol and illegal drugs, chased someone along the street with a knife. The police were called. The police restrained him. He knocked a policewoman unconscious and struggled, and then sadly died as a result, through the process of the police restraining him. And there seems to have been a real determination, like from day one. There were some campaigners who were just determined to turn Sheku Bayoh into Scotland's George Floyd, which is, well, without any comment on George Floyd, but there's no suggestion at all that the police, as far as I can see, the police did anything wrong. In this case, the police were acting bravely, dealing with a man who was a significant danger to the public, and as it turned out, to himself as well. So there's the background. The public inquiry to this is ongoing, no doubt costing millions and millions of pounds. But the Green Brigade of Celtic supporters put up this street sign, named a street after him, trying to make out he's some sort of heroic martyr. Well, he may have been a very nice chap in some other ways, but he was a violent, drug-addled criminal when he died. Okay, that's just the facts of the matter. So the idea you're going to name a street after him is just totally beyond comprehension. Anyway, so they did. The Green Brigade stuck this sign up to make some sort of ridiculous point. And then they donated the sign to the Kelvin Grove Museum. And the Kelvin Grove Museum have now got it on display. This is some sort of significant historical artifact to display to Scots and visitors to Scotland as though it's of some significance. I mean, museums in Scotland, basically they're, as with so many other institutions, they're basically ideologically captured by sort of left-wing progressive activists. This is just another example of it. The Police Federation, I'm not sure that's exactly the right term, but some police body has complained to the museum about the way this has been treated and the way that it's been displayed. So hopefully that will be removed from the museum, but maybe not. The other thing with this, how embarrassing for basically for black people, because the implication here is that your hero, the hero black person, is a criminal high on drugs chasing someone along the street with a knife. That's the sort of black person we want to honor. That's a real icon of the black community. I mean, how embarrassing for black people. I mean, surely everyone should be wishing, can we just, okay, the police did their job. Unfortunately, the man died. I mean, no one was intending that. Unfortunately, he died, but the police did their job, and that's that. We're not trying to use this to stir up racial tension, which is what it is being used for. So no doubt we'll hear more about that story in weeks to come. Quick reminder, the Refuel Festival. So we're having a conference on the afternoon of Wednesday, the 23rd of July, at the Refuel Christian Conference near to Fochabers in the northeast in Gordon Castle Estate. It's free admission, and you're welcome to come. The whole festival is a sort of evangelical, charismatic Christian event, but everyone is welcome to come. Say it doesn't cost anything. You can come along just for our conference and listen to our speakers, meet people, etc. So do come along. I'd be welcome to do any other things as well. But do try and come along to the conference. I think last year a few people fitted into their holiday plans. You know, if you're driving around in your mobile home or whatever, or deciding where you're going to go and stay, maybe be in this part of the world on the 23rd of July. And we would love to see you the whole week, from the Sunday evening to the Thursday tea time. We'll have our tent there, and you'd be very welcome to join us. You could be at the tent, help chatting to people as well. We would love to see you. If you are going to come along, it'd be good if you could let me know. Drop an email to contact@scottishfamily.org. It'd be good to know who's going to be around. So, right. Well, this is an interesting story. So Hungary, Viktor Orban has said that the government buildings are not going to fly a rainbow flag anymore, to which we would certainly say, great, very good decision. There's no reason why a government building should be flying that flag, and there are plenty of reasons why it shouldn't be as well. So we're quite in agreement with that. But there was an interesting contrast, though, because the Reform Party have taken over various councils in England, and they've stopped flying the rainbow flag from their buildings as well. They've also stopped flying anything apart from, I think, like the Union Jack and the county flag or something. So they've made the same decision. But I think the difference is that for Reform, the Reform Party are basically saying, you know, we're absolutely happy with same-sex marriage, perfectly accepting of gay relationships. They're absolutely fine. We're absolutely fine with all of that. It's just we think the flag's unnecessary. That's the Reform line. Whereas then the line in Hungary is a bit more, well, we don't think this is a helpful thing to be presenting, particularly to young people. Gay relationships are not ideal in a lot of ways. They don't tend to lead to good outcomes. They don't tend to lead to good outcomes for the children who are brought up with them. And for young people, we don't think this should be presented to them as just as an equal choice to heterosexuality to experiment with and go down if they wish to, because there are a lot of questions to ask, a lot of issues to raise. So it's an interesting contrast there. So Reform, they don't want the flag, but they're happy for everything that the flag stands for. Whereas I think in Hungary, I think they understand with a bit more depth some of the issues involved, and that's why they don't want rainbow flags flying. Well done, Hungary, indeed. Obviously, in saying this, there are other aspects of the Hungarian government. They get criticised in various ways. To be honest, I'm not an expert. I don't know how true those criticisms are. But on this issue in particular, I think they are spot on. It's saying, curbing LGBTQ propaganda targeting children, kindergarten, schools, media, and in public. Quite right. Absolutely. Right. The big news of the day. Huge news. It only applies in England and Wales. Scotland's case will come later. But basically, the House of Commons has voted to decriminalise abortion. Now, what this means is a woman seeking an abortion by whatever means, at whatever stage of pregnancy, will not be a criminal once this bill is finished its passage through Parliament and becomes law. Okay, so a woman who ends her own pregnancy by whatever means, at whatever stage, will not be breaking the law. Now, the obvious application is, I mean, who will commit this crime at the moment? People who commit the crime are people who realize they're over the limit and want to have an abortion. And the way you tend to do it now is you'd get abortion pills, which is easily done because it's an online appointment. There's no proper checks about the stage of gestation. So it's quite easy to get abortion pills, or someone else can get them for you, whatever. So it's easy to get the pills. And if a woman, knowing full well that she's, say, 8 months pregnant, and gets these pills and takes them, it will kill the baby, and the woman won't be prosecuted. She won't be investigated. No action will be taken. So this is effectively permission to kill babies right up to birth, which is horrific, really terrible evil. How much attention has it received in the nation? Not much, hardly any, really, and nowhere near the top of the news. Just presented as a fairly routine little change in the law in Parliament, but a really very, very grave matter indeed. Now, you might have seen my video I made about this. The BBC had been working up towards this for some years. So let's have a look at their report. MPs vote to decriminalise abortion for women in England and Wales. Right, let's read a bit of their report here. MPs have voted to change abortion legislation to stop women in England and Wales being prosecuted for ending their pregnancy. Now, again, the way that's worded, it sounds like, well, obviously women end their pregnancies. I mean, everyone knows that, but it just means they're not going to be prosecuted for doing it. Okay, which isn't really a proper characterization of a law, is it? It's saying this is now going to allow this. Right, the Labour MP for Gower, Tonya Antoniazzi, led the call to decriminalise the 1% of abortions that happen after 24 weeks, saying these were desperate women who needed compassion, not criminalisation. Right, the 1% of abortions after 24 weeks, I think most of those are for disability. So I think that figure is a bit misleading. So currently it's a tiny, tiny number of abortions after 24 weeks that are not for that reason, and they are therefore currently illegal. So the reason there are so few abortions after 24 weeks is because it's illegal. Now it's not illegal, the numbers inevitably will increase. Right, these are desperate women who need compassion, not criminalization. So these are women who choose to have an abortion after 24 weeks when the fetus is fully viable. They need compassion, not criminalization. They, of course, referring to the women, obviously not to the babies. The babies get no look in this, no mention in this discussion from her at all. They just don't exist as far as she's concerned. As an issue of conscience, MPs were allowed to vote according to their personal beliefs and backed the plan by a big majority of 242 votes. Yeah, massive majority, massive landslide majority. So I think what this illustrates, again, is once the Parliament's elected, the die is cast. I mean, all the letter writing and emailing and whatever, it might make a little bit of difference here and there, but on an issue like this, basically the die is cast on election day. So if we want a pro-life vote in the Parliament, you've got to elect pro-life politicians. It's as simple as that. It is simple and straightforward as that. Now, if you say, oh, there's not enough of us, we haven't got enough votes to get people elected. Well, okay, so it's not going to happen yet. So you've got to build up. So you've got to persuade more and more people to vote to become pro-life and then to vote for pro-life parties. And that's the way this sort of thing can be stopped, can be repealed, and abortion can be stopped in general. An issue of conscience. I mean, I really find that term frustrating. Conscience, in other words, issue of right and wrong. Is this good or is this evil? And because it's a matter of good and evil, the parties say, I vote how you like, we don't care. You know, it doesn't really matter, we don't have a policy on that. So they're allowed to vote according to their personal beliefs. Right. When there are Scottish Family Party MPs at Westminster and MSPs in the Scottish Parliament, this will not be an issue of conscience where they can vote according to their personal beliefs, because they will be representing the Scottish Family Party, and the Scottish Family Party defends the unborn. So they will vote in accordance with party policy, which will align with their personal beliefs, or they wouldn't have joined the party in the first place. So this idea that this, is not a matter of party politics, I don't know, it's got to change. It's got to change. The tide won't turn unless we get out of this this trap, which just causes confusion. Right, the current law in England and Wales states that abortion is illegal, but allowed up to the first 24 weeks of pregnancy. Beyond that, in certain circumstances, such as the woman's life is in danger, right, or disability. They don't say that. Disabled babies can be killed right up to the moment before birth. But the BBC, there's a BBC report. They don't particularly want to say that because, well, maybe it doesn't sound great, does it? So maybe best leave that bit out of the report. The amendments to the Crime and Policing Bill will remove the threat of investigation, arrest, prosecution, or imprisonment for late-term abortion. In other words, free-for-all. So even if the woman performs the abortion by whatever improvised means she might decide she wants to try, she will not be breaking the law, even up to the point of birth, if this happens. Now, notice the way it happens. This is something that happens at Westminster. It doesn't happen at Holyrood, thankfully. I'm not sure what the difference is, but it doesn't. This is where you have one law, and they like tack an amendment onto it that brings in a really massive change in a totally unrelated area. I think it's really unhelpful. So it bypasses the proper consultation stages, proper debate stages. But at Westminster, this seems to happen, and that's what's happened here. Setting out her arguments, she flagged that nearly 99% of abortions happen before a pregnancy reaches 20 weeks, leaving just 1% of women in desperate circumstances. Desperate circumstances. Right, that could include, maybe only in a small number of cases, but that could include people who at 24 weeks say they still wanted the baby, but then something changes in their circumstances and they change their mind and decide they don't want the baby after all, then they can kill it. Now, people will say, oh, that would never happen. No woman would ever do that. Really? Yes, they would. Yes, they do. And even more will do so. Now, I'm not saying it's huge numbers, but more will do so now the deterrence has been removed. She highlighted a series of cases where women have been arrested for illegal abortion offences and urged MPs to support her amendment to recognise these women need care and support, not criminalisation. Right, I mean, they possibly do need care and support, but their decision to kill their baby just before it's born, for example, that should be absolutely criminalised. And a woman choosing to do that should be punished, plain and simple. Same as she should be punished if she kills her baby just after birth, she should be punished for killing the baby just before birth. It's quite straightforward. Each one of these cases is a travesty enabled by our outdated abortion law, she said. Outdated abortion law. I mean, how old is the law against murder? Is that outdated? Is that, centuries old? Obviously, if it's centuries old, that must be a terrible law. It must be time to modernize and take away these restrictions that are criminalizing murderers. I mean, there's arguments. I mean, there's no content to them whatsoever. Right. Originally passed by an all-male parliament elected by men alone, this Victorian law is increasingly used against vulnerable women and girls. Right. In what sense they're vulnerable? And very often vulnerable is not the right word. The vulnerable party is the little boy or girl in the womb. That's the truly vulnerable party. This law was passed by an all-male parliament. Well done, them. They were protecting the unborn. That's what those men did. They voted to protect the unborn. Those men who had a vote then, they've elected a parliament that protected the unborn. So well done then. The fact that they're men, again, it's another argument with no content, no logical content whatsoever. I mean, it's just a Labour MP. I mean, this is just the sort of stuff you expect. Only 3 women were convicted of having an illegal abortion between 1861 and November 2022. Okay. I would imagine a lot more women had illegal abortions, but for one reason or another, they didn't get convicted. When the law was changed to allow pregnant women to take abortion pills at home, if they were less than 10 weeks pregnant. So in other words, they start giving out abortion pills like sweeties with no proper medical checks. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, more women take them over the time limit. And that leads to police investigations, quite rightly, because they've broken the law. But yeah, so they've created a situation where a lot of women are going to break the law. And then they're saying, look, lots of women are getting prosecuted. It must be the law that's the problem. Where it absolutely isn't. So this is a very serious step. This amendment is not as bad as Stella Creasy's one that was proposed, but this one is very significant indeed. in that now a perfectly healthy child in the womb just before birth is not safe, thanks to the MPs in the Parliament. Right, how did they vote? Let's have a little think about that. Labour MPs voted overwhelmingly in favour of it. As soon as we had this Labour landslide in July, this was going to happen. Okay, this didn't happen because not enough people emailed their MPs. This happened because so many people voted Labour in July last year. So if you voted Labour last year, this is what you were voting for. You could see it was going to come. These Labour activists were on the case with this. I mean, you could see it a mile off. This was going to happen. So if you voted Labour, you're not quite directly, but pretty directly voting for allowing the killing of children just before they're born. Okay. If you voted Lib Dem, same. Green, same. SNP, they abstained. Now, they would say, oh, well, it's not a devolved issue, so it's none of our business what the law is in England and Wales. Had I have been an MP, I would have voted against it. Now, that's the situation where I would say, forget the constitutional arrangements. It doesn't matter. If my vote can be used to save lives, I'm going to use it. That's more important than constitutional propriety. And I would have voted against it. But the SNP all just didn't vote. The Conservatives, substantial majority of them, voted against. It's interesting. I mean, that would tend to be the Conservatives, wouldn't it? There's always some who will vote the wrong way, but probably most of them will vote the right way. This time, 5 years' time, they'll have forgotten about this issue. There'll be some other amendments or something brought forward. They'll be even worse than this one. And again, most of the Conservatives, if there's any left, most of the Conservatives will vote against it, and a few will vote for it, and that pattern just continues. It just continues. They drag their heels about each bad thing, but then once it passes, they forget about it, and that's that. So out of the parties we're considering, the Conservative Party has done the best, though. Most of their MPs voted against it, but you can't count on a Conservative MP to vote against it. Right, which other party do we need to mention? We need to mention the Reform Party. The Reform Party. How did they vote, do you think? The answer is they didn't. They couldn't even be bothered to vote in it. I mean, that's pathetic, isn't it? Pathetic, spineless, unprincipled. This is a key moral issue of massive gravity that probably in the pub having a pint. Ha, 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 ha. Didn't even bother to go along and vote. Now, I'd like to send a message to Right to Life campaigning group, SPUC, Christian Institute. Because as I remember, all three of those organizations did a big article, big picture of Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage wants to restrict abortion. He wants to bring the time limit down from maybe 24 weeks to 22 weeks. You know, it's great pro-life champion, Nigel Farage, in the small print. Well, Nigel Farage does say he's pro-choice. But as far as the people who follow these organizations, Nigel Farage has been put up the poster boy of the pro-life movement, given a massive boost by pro-life organizations. And then it comes to this, and he doesn't even bother voting. So, Right to Life, Christian Institute, SPUC, I assume you're going to do just as big an article saying Nigel Farage fails to vote to stop children being killed just before they're born. Are you going to do that article? Just so that your supporters, your readers, are getting a balanced picture of what's going on. And I know the answer is no. You're not going to do that because you just have the Forbes effect. So you will have effectively misled your supporters by presenting Nigel Farage as a pro-life figure. And now when the evidence is obviously strongly to the contrary, you just keep that quiet. So the false impression is maintained. Well, I've asked. Don't think it'll make any difference, but I think it really is time for a rethink in the way that these organizations present politicians. So that's Reform. Rupert Lowe, maybe you're thinking, oh, Rupert Lowe, he is the one with the backbone. He was in Reform. He's the better one. What did he do? Didn't vote. Okay. I mean, you can imagine what our memes are going to be on social media tomorrow morning. We've really got to wake people up and say, if you think Reform are in some way a solution to the moral crisis in our country, frankly, you're delusional. You are delusional if you see Reform as some sort of force for social conservatism or for life, for example, because they are just not. they're not. Right, let's get back on this stage there. I was saying with reform for a little while. There have been lots in the news. Right, this is David Bull, their new chairman. I think he's on the left there now. David Bull is gay. I put this on social media, and people were saying, "Oh, this is not fair. You're picking on him because he's gay." I wouldn't say that was true. Picking on him because this is part of a gay pride event. Gay pride events we're not keen on at all. And to be parading through streets dressed like that, I would say in a sort of sexualized way, I don't like it. I don't like that. And someone who will associate themselves with that, stand and pose for a photograph in that sort of situation, no. That does not reflect well on the values and character of David Bull, the new Reform Party chairman. Let's just put it that way. So there's been quite a bit of news about David. I think with Reform, the pattern emerging is that they sort of don't quite know what they believe, and they'll sort of take anyone, and some people are saying all sorts of contradictory things. Now, David Bull, I think the reason that they like him and the reason they put him in this really senior position is basically he's a media smoothie. He was a TV presenter, a media TV personality. So I think Reform thinks, well, if it's a TV personality, it's obviously the perfect candidate, isn't it? I mean, what more could you need to be a key figure in Reform than having great media ability and experience? Well, obviously, you might need some principles, some political viewpoints, for example. Well, let's have a look at that a little bit more. This is David Bull, where I was 7 years ago. 9-year-olds should be taught what it means to be LGBT. So in other words, David Bull was campaigning for exactly what we campaign against. We say 9-year-olds should not be being taught, oh, you might be lesbian, you might be gay, you might be bisexual, you might be transgender. These are all perfectly valid choices. As you grow up, you'll just have to find your own way. Maybe a bit of experimentation, and whichever way you choose, that's all just great. David Bull says, yep, that's what we need. That's what we need. Notice the T there. Reform policy is pretty clear against transgender ideology in schools, but David Bull, it seems, isn't. It seems he's quite approving of it. Anyway, right, let's see what else David Bull. I just got this from Artificial Intelligence on X. Reform's UK policy bans transgender ideology in schools. Right, excellent. That's exactly the same as us. Right, good. Prohibiting gender questioning, social transitioning, or pronoun swapping while requiring parental notification for under 16's life decisions. Right, we would say just the school's not going to support any sort of gender transition in school. Simple as that. So we're a bit stronger, but okay, Reform's policy is pretty good. Their stance on teaching about lesbian, gay, or bisexual identities is unclear, as their contract with you does not address these specifically. David Bull, Reform's openly gay chairman, supported LGBT education in a 2018 X post, suggesting potential internal conflict within Reform. The broader debate weighs inclusion and bullying reduction against parental rights and age appropriateness. Well, there's more to it than that. Reform's position appears focused on transgender issues, leaving ambiguity on broader LGB education. I've said that many times, haven't I? A lot of the problems we say with school sex education, LGBT inclusive education, is the LGB bit as well as the T bit. But Reform, no, it's just the T. When it comes to the LGB bit, their representatives can often be heard saying, oh, same-sex marriage, this was great progress, it's really wonderful. We've got these rights. People recognize homosexual relationships as perfectly valid. People are learning about them in schools. That's all as it should be. We just don't want a flag on the council building. Well, that's not what we're saying. Right, another tweet from David Bull a few years ago. Total idiot. Inclusive sex education is important and must be compulsory. He was replying to probably not at that time, probably not he was a conservative at one point, but replying to a conservative MP who said schools are not the place for education on LGBT issues. So this conservative MP probably said something quite sensible about saying we don't want LGBT teaching in schools. And David Bull calls them a total idiot. Inclusive sex education You know what that means, don't you? That means basically the worst type of sex education. That's like we've got in Scotland. And if you don't want that, then you're a total idiot, according to the new chairman of Reform UK. Now, you can imagine if we got Nigel Farage on the live stream and said, right, how about this? Look at what he said here. Well, what do you think? Nigel Farage goes, oh, well, that's a long time ago. Oh, let's go and have a pint. And oh, he's a good friend of mine. He's a great fella. And ask me a different question. Well, that's not good enough. Look, no, these are important issues, and they need to be addressed with serious policies. Right, more from David. Well, Hillary Clinton belongs in the White House. Donald Trump belongs on my shoe. On my show. Right, okay. Right, interesting perspective. As you probably know, I'm not a great fan of Donald Trump in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, I think he's very, very concerning. In other ways, I think what he's doing is really great. But to be saying you prefer Hillary Clinton, well, for someone who's leading a party that's supposed to be saying, we are the genuine voice of, right of centre voice, Scottish politics, well, it's really quite surprising, isn't it? It almost looks as if David Bull doesn't know what he believes. He's just going with the flow and being a smoothie, cool guy, smooth media operator, nice smile, saying what he needs to say and getting on with everyone. What he believes, well, who knows? Who knows? But he's obviously got the formula to rise straight to the top in Reform UK. Here's another one. Trump to Muslims. If you see hatred going on, you must report it. Okay, I'm reporting it. You are the source of hate, Trump. So David Bull is saying that Trump hates Muslims. To be honest, I don't see that myself. I know Trump introduced the travel bans from countries where terrorist groups were rife. It seemed quite reasonable to me. So on what grounds he's saying Trump hates Muslims, I really don't know. But again, this is the chairman of Reform. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you could say he's had a political awakening since 2016. I'm not sure. Or does he just think this is where there's an opportunity to get elected and become a prominent public figure again? So I'll go with Reform. Well, maybe. Right. And this is slightly different. This is not having a go at David Bull. This just raises an issue that's interesting to talk about. So I'm not talking about David Bull in particular. Just someone brought it up with regard to him. They said he spent 6 years studying medicine between 1987 and 1993. In 1995, he began his show business career in a variety of roles. A political career followed. Does it seem a waste of taxpayers' money to train him? Then 2 years later, he leaves. Answer that question, yes. More important question, what should be done about it? Should people be given a loan for medical degrees, and then you have to repay some of it if you don't work in Britain or if you don't work in the NHS? I think there might be some schemes along those lines, but I think it's a reasonable question to ask. And if measures are put in place to ensure that we do get return on investment on training medics, I think that could be a good move. Now, as far as I'm concerned, if we train a doctor and they go off to be, a doctor in, I don't know, Mozambique or something, a very poor country, then I would say great, absolutely fantastic. That's in the finest traditions of Great Britain to go and do that. I'm perfectly happy to be doing that. If we train a doctor and they then go off and become a multimillionaire doing cosmetic surgery in America, then I say, no, that's not what we paid all that money to train you for. Or similarly, if you just become a doctor, cease practicing as a doctor, the same question arises. So valid question to consider. David Bull there is just an example. I'm not saying he's unique in this regard at all, but it is an example and it is an issue worth considering. Right, just staying on the issue of reform here and their principles, there have been a few defections of councillors in Scotland to reform, and they always put out a statement, reform is the way forward, reform is where my views really line up. And you think, that doesn't really make sense. Reform's policies are unchanged for quite a few years. Why didn't you join Reform years ago if it's a matter of lining up with the policies that you actually believe in? Because obviously it's not that. What it really is these people thinking, right, I'm not going to get elected next time as a Conservative or Labour even. I've got more chances with Reform. I think I'm going to switch to Reform. Or even thinking, if I switch to Reform, there's maybe a chance of getting to be an MP or an MSP. So, yeah, I think that's what's best for my selfish ends, is to switch to Reform. And I would say that's what's happening with these people. If it was a matter of principle and policy, they'd have done it years ago. But they didn't. They did it at the point where it aligns with their self-interest. So not impressed. Not impressed. Right. Brothers who get abortions be punished by law. If the abortion is illegal, yes. Yes. I mean, if the law was as the family party would like it to be, basically abortion in general would be illegal. So any woman who got an abortion would be breaking the law, and anyone who performed the abortion would be breaking the law. But women who get abortions currently that break the law should be punished for that. If they've done that knowingly as a criminal offence, then they should be punished. Kathy, Reform or a job? I mean, yeah, it's fascinating. I think with Reform, even on a daily basis, stories are coming out showing that they're just being unprincipled. They'll say whatever, say different things to different people, promise the earth to different people. The sums don't add up. But to be honest, are they turning into the Conservative Party, or even worse, the Conservative Party? I don't know. I think if they became the government now, I really dread to think what would happen. John, taking abortion pills after 10 weeks could also be fatal for the mother. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this medication is dangerous to the mother as well, beyond the time limit. But people will do it. Women will do it. Now, they are doing already in small numbers. When the deterrence of the law is taken away, then it will happen more and more. What have we got next? A quick report from the Czech Republic. Czech Republic's forecasted fertility rate for 2025 will be around 1.25. That's disastrously low. To give you an idea of how disastrously low that is, it's even lower than Scotland's. Scotland's about 1.29. So really, they've got major problems in terms of maintaining their population. It was 1.83 as recently as 2021. I mean, that's quite remarkable, isn't it? That sort of drop. Quite remarkable. Dropped 30% in 4 years. I retweeted this with the comment with this latest from the most secular nation in Europe. And that's not unrelated. Generally, more religious people have more children. That's the general pattern. So as religious belief declines in a nation, the fertility rate tends to decline as well. And the Czech Republic is at the forefront in that. So when a nation looks at its demographic problems, and they are critical, severe problems that should be causing sleepless nights for governments if they're looking beyond the next election, then anything that they can do that will encourage, facilitate, certainly not prevent, certainly not hinder the strengthening of religious faith, well, that's something they should be looking at very carefully. Okay, another question here. What punishment should a mother get for abortion? I think if it's an illegal abortion, so if someone now deliberately takes abortion pills or uses some other means to end the healthy pregnancy after the 24-week limit, then I think that should be seen as a serious crime. Imprisonment, possibly. Yeah, I don't know. There will be guidelines in place already for what punishments would be available for that. Oh, this was a shocking story. You'll have heard me say it's only a matter of time until someone's killed in a Scottish school. I mean, this is getting pretty close. Pupil threw teacher to the ground like a rag doll. This was in Dundee. Pupil who seriously injured a teacher by picking her up and slamming her head first into a concrete floor has been given a community sentence. Kieran Matthews, 18, left the woman unconscious in a pool of blood after throwing her to the floor like a rag doll at St. Paul's Academy in Dundee in March last year. So he's 18. Was he 18 at the time? Maybe was he 17 at the time? Why is this a community sentence? This sounds like attempted murder to me. But of course, the SNP says you're not fully responsible for your actions until you're 25. So, I mean, sending him to prison is very, very unlikely. The court heard Matthew put his feet up on the teacher's desk following the attack and said the stupid cow deserved it. I would say in this case, where were the rest of the pupils in the class? Now, I don't know the situation here. There might be, but let's assume there were another 20-odd pupils in this class, half of them boys, half of them girls. Let's say, for example, the half of them that were boys should have sprung to their feet and attacked Matthew and restrained him with whatever force was necessary to prevent this from happening. Now, maybe there wasn't time, maybe that wasn't possible, but if it was possible, there should have been a concerted effort by the rest of the class to stop this happening. And would the class even think about that? They'd probably think more about getting their phones out to film it than actually intervening, because they see that the staff don't intervene. If there'd been a teacher there, what would a teacher have done? Probably nothing. Probably they'd have got the phone and tried to phone, the deputy head pupil support or something to come along and talk to the boy. Right, let's carry on with the report. He was placed under social work supervision for 3 years, ordered to attend a mentoring course, including anger management, and placed on a 1-year curfew. Right, not enough. Not a mentoring course, anger management. He should feel now that his life is going to be made an absolute misery for a significant length of time before there's thought of rehabilitation, mentoring, counseling. He really needs to feel, whoa, I wish I hadn't done that. The consequences are so awful for me. I wish I hadn't done it. Will he be thinking that? Not necessarily with this. Court heard that the teacher had been left with an extensive, significant scar on her head as a result of the attack. Sheriff said she dedicated her life to vulnerable school children such as you. Vulnerable. He's just tried to kill her, and he's vulnerable. It's so ingrained that the pupil is like a vulnerable, delicate flower. It's not vulnerable. I mean, he's a menace, total thug, violent criminal, not vulnerable. The teacher's vulnerable in this case. Right, you've robbed her of her career, as she might have been, as she's been unable to go back into school due to panic attacks, nightmares, night terrors as a result of this assault. Right, every sympathy for the teacher. Told Matthew the offence merited 18 months in custody, but said it would be reduced for an early guilty plea. Said, right, I can't read that because my slide number is in the way. But yeah, so the guidance of avoiding short-term sentences under 12 months if there's an alternative available. So we won't be going to prison. Matthew, who has ADHD, extremely low IQ in the range 47 to 59, admitted attacking and injuring the teacher. Okay, that IQ level is extremely low. And to be honest, I don't think there's any way a pupil like that should be expected to cope in a mainstream school. So he should be in some sort of special school with that ability level. But the SNP, social engineering comes first. Equality. Equality means treating everyone the same, putting everyone in the same context, giving them the same opportunities, even though the opportunities given to that boy will have been inaccessible to him. There's no way he can follow a standard academic program with that level of IQ. So that's Scottish government policy causing that problem there. Dundee Sheriff Court was told Matthew had refused to get changed separately from other pupils before a PE class. A measure being put in place because of previous aggression towards other children. So it sounded like maybe he should have been expelled before this. That would have solved the problem. Agitated and heightened over the pre-PE changing. Right, that's just a sort of lawyer making excuses probably. Teacher was deemed to be a safe person for him and had previously succeeded in de-escalating volatile incidents. A safe person. So in other words, some adults at the school were classed as not safe people, so they weren't safe to be with him. Okay, if some people are safe to be with this pupil, some people are not safe, the pupil shouldn't be there. You can't be in the school. Previously succeeded in de-escalating volatile incidents. De-escalating, not good enough. It's not good enough just to de-escalate, to defuse the situation and then wait for the next flare-up. When he behaves outrageously, or any pupil behaves outrageously, aggressively, then they need to learn the lesson. They need to end up thinking, wow, I'm not going to do that again because the consequences were really bad for me. I don't want to go through that again. But if it's just, oh, it's de-escalated, okay, that's fine. Just back to normal. Do the same when you feel like it again. Well, that's building up problems for the future business. She took the decision to have 2 other teachers and pupils placed in a locked classroom away from Matthew, who sat with his head down on the table. He then tried to leave the room where the teacher had her back to him. Mrs. Bruce said she recalls him gripping her in a rugby-style grip with her arms pinned to her sides. And then the next thing she felt was a horrific impact of her head striking the floor. Again, sounds like the situation shouldn't have been existing. You're having to basically put a pupil in a room on his own for fear he's going to attack other pupils. Shouldn't be there. Right, this is more. I won't go through all of these details, but it's, as I say, how long is it going to be before someone is killed in a Scottish school? And the responsibility for that will be on the person that performs the violent act. That's the primary responsibility. But in the background is the government, the educational establishment that is creating a situation where pupils are out of control and behaving in an absolutely wild and unrestrained and aggressive manner and allowed to get away with it. And this is systematic, and that will result in more and more outrageous behavior from pupils, and it will result in someone getting killed. So time will tell. Time will tell. All right, this has been quite a big story today. The Alexander Dennis coach building company looking at moving out of Scotland for a very straightforward business decision as far as they're concerned. My main thought on this is obviously the politicians all come in and say, oh, we're going to see what we can do, see what we can do. The most important thing to do to help businesses is not to spring into action when they decide they're going to leave. It's to create a business-friendly environment in the first place. If your regulatory framework, taxation, etc., is business-friendly, businesses are going to want to come to Scotland, are going to want to stay in Scotland. By the time they're thinking of leaving, often it's too late. The other thing I thought from a media point of view, like Alexander Dennis, you ever heard of them before? I think I had heard of them before. But businesses, manufacturing, people doing useful things, not just manufacturing, other sorts of businesses as well, performing a vital function, and they're basically totally ignored in the media. So people, they don't even cross people's minds normally, whether these utilities, some public services, manufacturing, all sorts of businesses, absolutely vital, but they're basically ignored. So if you're going to get a documentary on BBC Scotland, who's it going to be about? Who are they going to be interviewing? Who's going to get an OBE or whatever? It's going to be the person who started, a social entrepreneur, started a cafe where they talk about mental health or something. This is what you constantly fed a diet of, as though this is the beating heart of Scotland. Whereas actually these critical jobs, functions that are keeping the wheels of the nation turning and the economy functioning are generally ignored in the media until there's some major problem comes along like this. So, yeah, but that's some unfortunate timing for Falkirk because they've had the Grangemouth issue as well. Yes, yeah, those IQ figures are outside the normal range. Let's just put it that way. Right, let's leave. I've just got one more thing to talk about. I've got them here rather than having it on the screen. It's by-election times soon in Craiglockhart and Fountain Bridge, which is the ward that I live in Edinburgh. I've normally stood in Collington Fairmile Head. Our house is right on the border, but it's Craiglockhart Fairmile Head by-election. I think one of the previous councillors died sadly. So leaflets galore coming through the door. It's amazing the amount of effort these parties put in. And yeah, they're either spending a huge amount of money or they've got an awful lot of activists that they can call upon. But just getting all these leaflets printed, quite a substantial amount of money, getting them all designed. So I'm quite impressed with how hard they're trying. So let's have a look at them, shall we? I might have lost some. I mentioned to my wife I was saving them. It's Mary's birthday today, by the way. I wanted to pass on birthday greetings. Yeah, so I said I was saving them. She said, oh, I've maybe thrown some away. So there might even have been more than this. So here we go. Conservatives, local resident. They all seem to say, when they can, local resident, Edinburgh man, or better still. I mean, one of them's even got a picture of a map, pinpointing on the map where the fellow lives in the ward. So actually living in the ward is a key thing, which, well, it's probably no bad thing. Then you get the picture of what they're doing. It's obligatory to have your picture taken next to like roadworks and potholes and things like that. But if you look at the issues they bring up, it's all the same thing. It's parking, graffiti, getting the roads fixed, etc. It's all good bin collections, pretty standard stuff. Now here for the Conservatives, they've put a graph in. Now their graph is fair and honest, because these are the results in the last election in this ward in 2022, I assume. And the Conservatives got the highest percentage of, I guess that's first preference votes. So they're saying in a one-member by-election, they're the best ones to beat the SNP. It's a bit negative, but that's most of the parties. It seems their key selling point is that they're not the other parties. So fair enough. Conservatives are saying we've got the best chance of beating the SNP, which at least seems honest. Right, what else did we get? Got another one from the same fella. Again, same graph again. Key thing here, have your picture taken kneeling down next to some potholes. I mean, you would almost imagine as soon as the photographer's finished, he gets out some mortar and a trowel or starts smearing tarmac over it, fixing it himself. All the same issues, parking, fix the roads, etc. All the same. Right, yet another one from the Conservatives. A bit more low budget, this one. Don't know if they're running out of money. Same graph. Again, they really think that's key. That's their most important message. Less roadworks, parking, fix the roads. I mean, it's just like every councillor, that all the candidates say. Right, yet another leaflet from the Conservatives. There's no graph on it, but here he is again, kneeling down by some holes in the road. Just the same issues, all the same things. Okay, that's the Conservatives trying very hard. I have to commend the Conservatives. I mean, they must be feeling pretty depressed at the moment with reform basically swamping them. But there's fight in them. They're giving it a good go. Right, the Greens. Vote Q Manivannan. Now, Q, is that a name or is that? I'm not sure what's going on there. That's not a name. It's an initial. I don't know. This is the Greens, so who knows what's going on there. And what are his campaigning points? Road safety. It's all about roads. Road safety. Clean Green Hutchison project, whatever that is. Protect the green spaces. Are they in danger? I mean, they've been there for centuries. Tenants' rights. Well, that's a bit different. So that's okay. Anyway, that's the Greens. There's one leaflet. Right, reform. One leaflet. Only one leaflet. So there he is. I'm Gary Neal, a local resident. So that's a key thing. After a global career in sales and project management, which has led to building strong relationships, negotiating successful deals, and driving growth, I'm determined to use this experience to improve the lives and residents, business owners in Fountain Bridge and Craiglockhart. Okay, maybe a bit too blowing his own trumpet too much, but anyway, okay, fair enough. Right, so what I've got to say inside, it says Edinburgh City Council employs too many people compared to other similar sized cities. Okay, fair point. I'm not sure how fair the comparison is because councils employ people, they also contract out things. Maybe these other cities contract out more. That's why they have less employees on the books. So it hasn't persuaded me that his comparison's fair, but okay, fair enough. Right, families and education. Reform UK believes parents should have control of their children's outcomes. I like the sentiment, but it doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Control over their outcomes? I don't know what that means. Doesn't mean anything. Right, next one. Reform UK believes education is about teaching skills, character, and values. Well, they're wrong then. How about knowledge? Does that come into it at any point? I mean, teaching skills, yes. Teaching character, yes. Teaching moral values, yes. But at a very fundamental level, it's about teaching knowledge as well, academic knowledge, and they haven't included that. I mean, that's a pretty major omission, isn't it? When you're saying, you're the traditional right of centre party, we're going to get education sorted out. I mean, a big problem with Scottish education is it neglects knowledge. It doesn't mention knowledge. Reform UK will protect children from trans ideology. Glad to hear it's great. 10 out of 10. That's just what our leaflet would say. I haven't actually done a leaflet for this one. I did when I stood in the other ward recently. But I've been very busy with other things. Right, housing pressure. Too many residents in temporary and costly accommodation. Okay, fair enough, fine. Next thing, potholes and pavements. That key issue of local politics. Crime. Sadly, drugs, robberies and antisocial behaviour are a fact of life. That sounds a bit like resignation. It's a fact of life. What can you do about it? I don't think that's what he means. It sounds a bit that way. A failing drugs policy has led to record deaths, broken families and communities, and fear on the streets. Okay, failing drugs. So what's your alternative? What are you going to do? Just be harder on drugs? Have the police enforce the law? That's part of our approach. But he doesn't say what the approach is. Scotland-wide reform will reduce NHS waiting lists. Okay, not sure how. Slash government waste. Okay, give 20% tax relief to all independent schools, thus relieving pressure on council schools. Right, I think what he means is remove VAT. That's not he hasn't expressed himself correctly, but I think he means take away VAT. Totally irrelevant to a council election, but okay, fair enough. Scrap net zero. Okay, opposed to war on drivers. Okay, that's fine. Now, what reform had to say, and that some of it was like nationwide political issues, which are virtually completely absent from all the other ones, which is interesting. I think people vote for the parties based on wider national issues, but they don't put them in the leaflets. Then they finish with the big sort of unions. It just made me think of Craig Houston. I mean, Craig Houston says reform are not unionist enough for him. Yeah, I struggle to see that one. Right, who have we got next? Labour. Vote Katrina Munro. Okay, photograph in recognisable place in the ward. What's she going to sort out? Parking, the road, upgrades to the road. What's going to happen at the old brewery site? Okay, fair enough. So again, pretty basic, obvious local stuff. Will anyone actually choose to vote for her because of these? With all these leaflets, with what they're saying about local issues, will they get people's votes? I really don't think so. I think they get people's votes because people like the party or they like the person. I don't think putting that you're going to fix potholes on your leaflet makes much difference. Right, Labour came to visit, but I wasn't in, so that was that. Right, we're now on to the big pile of leaflets. Which party do you think's got the massive pile of leaflets? You guessed it. The Lib Dems. Oh, who's standing for the SFP? I am. I'm the candidate for the Family Party. Sometimes we'll put our name on the ballot paper because it raises the profile of the party. Some people will see it and do a bit of research about it. So it's good to do that. If we don't campaign, I mean, our results won't be great. If we get 1%, that will be that'll be fine. We'll have raised the profile of the party. People don't look at the results, but people see who's standing. Right, so the Lib Dems, here we go. Who can we trust to stand up for Craig Lockhart and Kings Now? That's interesting. So this is a sub-area of the ward leaflet, because it's Craig Lockhart and Fairmile. Craig Lockhart and Fountain Bridge is the name of the ward. Who can we trust? In other words, this is a really, there's all sorts of charlatans trying to be councillors. We need someone we could trust. I mean, a bit rich from the Lib Dems, considering their last candidate in the by-election in my ward, the previous by-election. She got elected pushing her local credentials and then went off to live in Dubai or something. So there had to be another by-election. But anyway, right, the Lib Dems are famous for their graphs, aren't they? Now, this one is misleading It's not the sort of downright lying that they often do, but it is deliberately misleading. Remember, the Conservatives showed that they were in first place. So really, if you want to beat the SNP, you've got to vote Conservative. That was their message. But the Lib Dems have come with, they've got the SNP in first place with the Lib Dems in second, because they've done a graph of the seats in the whole council. That's what it is. Yeah, the size of the groups in the council. At least they make it clear what the graph is. But I think they know. People look at that and they go, "Oh right, SNP are first, Liberal are second," and not really digest what it's talking about. I think, "All right, if I want to beat the SNP, I need to vote Lib Dem." That's what they're trying to do. So I think it is deceptive, but not outright in the way they have been other times. Remember I said about the map? They've even put a map of the constituency showing where the fellow lives. I thought it's so important to show that he's in the ward. Right, local priorities. You never guess what they are. Fix broken roads, pavements, and paths. Stop cuts to local schools. Okay, so raise the education budget. Where's the money coming from? Okay. Protecting parks and precious green spaces. Okay, would any councillor not do that? Not sure. Then they probably all would. Anyway, so that's Lib Dem. Lib Dem leaflet number 1. Right, next leaflet. Who's this? Mystery leaflet. Greens. Is this the Greens? Who could this be? Oh, lo and behold, it's the Lib Dems. It's the Lib Dems. Now, needless to say, they've got their graph in there again. So what do they say? Fix the roads. Don't cut school budgets. It says the SNP have cut police funding. Okay, but where's the money coming from? A local council who will put our area first, etc., etc., etc. So, right, number 2 from the Lib Dems. Here we go. Another shape. They all come in different shapes and sizes. Lib Dems. Got the same graph again. Same issues. And we've now got another broadsheet one. Lib Dems. I mean, the Lib Dems, they're not a big party in Scotland. They must be loaded. They must have very significant backers. And in terms of, to get these things delivered, I mean, are they paying for them to be delivered? Or have they got a massive army of activists that can't imagine that they're calling in an army of activists to deliver this many leaflets in one ward? I don't think. Maybe. I mean, either way, it's in some ways it's pretty impressive. I've lost count. What am I up to? Is this 7 or something? Right. Same old graph. What do we need to know about him? He lives locally. That's the first thing you need to know. Again, focus. They make it look like this is just some sort of community newsletter. But to be honest, I mean, the Family Party, we've done things like that as well. We've said, this is the news about a certain area, and we include some news about the area, and then it sort of turns into a Family Party pitch. And the obligatory picture, here he is, standing next to some potholes in the road. It's yeah, action file. I mean, also, yeah, road safety, all the same things. So isn't it local politics? Fascinating. Oh, there's one more. Lib Dems again. Got the graph, and then a letter this time. Notice with the Lib Dems, every communication is a different shape, a different format. I guess that's so they think no one thinks, oh, I've seen that before. Seen it before. So to summarize on local politics, what's it about in terms of the issues? What cuts through? I'm not sure any of those issues cut through. I think people vote on the basis of loyalty to the party, or they know the person, or they just see enough leaflets and think, oh, this person seems like they're really keen. I've seen that name a lot, and they vote. I really don't know. I really don't know. It's a mystery. We're aiming for the 2027 council elections, and we've got some candidates who are trying to embed themselves in their ward and network, get to know people within the ward in preparation for standing as candidates in 2027. Our record in a council ward is 3.5%, which is Hamish Goldie Scott over in the Borders. And that's pretty good. That's, I think, the lowest percentage anyone's ever been elected on in a council ward is about 7%. But to actually get elected, you probably need like 10 or 20% of first preference votes to actually be in with a chance of getting elected. So yeah, I thought it was interesting to have a look through those. So we shall see how that all works out. Right, it is now 10:05. Right, thanks for your comments. Yeah, Sheriff Tim Niven-Smith is guilty here. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the sheriff is following the rules. The SNP government. It's funny how the legal system works. They come up with their sentencing guidelines. I mean, is that just created by the judges on their own independently, or the Crown Office or whatever, or is that the government? And then the government obviously has influence over the level of sentencing and sentencing policy. So it's the SNP's approach. Basically, it's a humanist approach that no one is actually responsible for their actions. Everything is caused by something else. So you're not really responsible for your actions. So instead of being punished, you really need to be treated and helped. And that's the compassionate and sensible thing to do. So that philosophy has been imposed on the legal system. So, right. Let's one last question, then we'll go. Right, me and my friends still renting bedsitters or one-room flats. What happens when we retire? Right, I would like everybody to be able to buy a home, and I think in order to do that, well, and we need to build more homes so the prices come down, build more affordable homes, so enable people to buy. I think the idea of spending your life giving such huge sums of money to a landlord, I think that's very unfortunate indeed. I'd much rather people were investing in their own capital, if you like, building up their own resources, owning a property, and then being in a much stronger position themselves and for future generations as well. So yeah, build more houses. But the other side of that is that what's going to happen when the population falls off a cliff? But at the moment around Edinburgh, they're building houses at an incredible rate. I mean, thousands of them being built all around Edinburgh and within Edinburgh as well. When the population starts declining, what's going to happen? I mean, house prices are going to absolutely plummet. Yeah, very hard to imagine how that's all going to work out. But in the shorter term, family party, we would want, another thing as well is we would want to put restrictions, taxes, etc. What's it called? Multiple. Can't remember what it's called. There's a penalty on council tax for second homes, additional dwelling supplement. That's it. We agree with that. We would even increase it so that instead of some people owning 2 or 3 homes, whether that's as holiday homes or for themselves, or whether they're to let as well, we would rather them sell that house and someone who be able to buy it and live in it. The priority is people to be able to buy houses and live in them, rather than landlords building up property portfolios. So that's what we would try to do. Okay, right, I'm not sure there's an easy answer to that one. In terms of retirement, I mean, there is council property available, isn't there? And there's the state pension. I don't know what your pension situation is. The state pension is modest, but I think there's council accommodation, I assume, would be available. Right. So thanks very much. I enjoyed an hour with you this evening, and we'll see you next week. Yes, well, we'll have a live stream next week. Then that might be the last one before a summer break through July. Right. Thanks for watching, and see you next week.